Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. I am here with my great friend and partner, Angelo Cisco, and we are coming to talk to you today about the most current event, which is being shared around the world, which is Russia invading Ukraine. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yes.
Welcome, bud.
Oh, man, pleasure to be here. It's such a interesting time for us. First, Russia's invading Ukraine, and I want to then say, the only person that I would imagine that is enjoying this is Joe Rogan, because finally he gets some time to just relax and not get attacked by every major media outlet in the world on his stance. So, Joe, I hope you're enjoying this vacation of not being the only thing talked about. But, this is a really big moment for us because it's so interesting. What brings this to me be so interesting is Russia brought back physical warfare, where I think a lot of people thought the days of being invaded by another country were behind us. And to think that, seeing a tank drive down a major street, storming a capital, this is, it almost looked like a World War II scene or something that we would have seen in an older movie. And now, man, who predicted that we would see, there's speculation, obviously, about who is doing what, but, there was talk about like China being a big part of COVID, and this is the first form of what we would know as modern warfare. Even Russia to bring back a form of warfare that to me, I think is catching people by most surprise. And one thing I do want to say and send our prayers and love for is that the people of Ukraine and their families are as safe as they possibly can be, and doing all that. We send prayer and love to them.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I really kind of think a lot about. One, I want to talk a little bit about the fear involved, the fear, the way that people are responding to this in the United States. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I want to talk about that. The other one is the fact that I think people have to kind of stop and think and realize that the glorification of war now, you can't glorify it at this point, because people are going to die, and no matter how great it looks in a game, when it's in real, it's a totally different thing. And I think we're so far separated from it.
Yes.
And what I do with my boys is we watch real raw war movies. Like, Hacksaw Ridge, if you haven't seen that, it's a beautiful story, but there's just absolute destruction, and it shows the gnarliness of war. And I think we're so advanced now that it's not that way. And I don't think we can assume that.
Agreed. That's why I brought that up is, anyone that has seen film or, even the old World War II films and just the footage of all that kind of stuff. And it's really sad. It's a very violent, different way of warfare, and not that economic warfare, just from that, or psychological warfare. Some people have said that about, possible ideas of quarantine, but just people are dying. People are losing their mothers. People are losing their fathers. Children are dying. Like, this is a scary time. You know what I mean? And so it really is to think about this happening to us or to anyone listening to this show, and this could be about your family, just to put yourself in your most empathetic clothing right now of what is like living in Ukraine right now. It's absolutely such a dark and scary moment.
Yeah, I think there's just a ton of unknowns.
Yes.
They don't know what kind of war this is going to be. We're seeing tanks and things that are like, wait a minute. It reminds me of watching Band of Brothers and going back to all of these movies where they tried to make it as real as possible, and it's ugly.
Yes.
It's ugly. People get run over by a tank, and that does not look good.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything. I just think we really need to settle into the fact that it's real.
Yes.
And and not jump to the, well, somebody's going to push the button and then we're in nuclear war. I mean, there's just so many ways we can tap into a fear mindset, but maybe just like more of a real reality check of really what is happening over there. And you mentioned it. There's empathy. We need to be empathetic for anybody. I went through this course once, and the guy was talking about perceptual intelligence. And his theory, and I'd be curious what you think, his theory is that nobody really does something because they think it's wrong.
Yes.
They actually believe that what they're doing is right. And he used the extreme case of Hitler, like even if whether that was mental illness or whatever that psychosis was, where he was like, we need to become a pure race. In his mind, he was doing something higher. He was acting on a higher level. He was doing something for good. And I think as much as that's a horrible analogy because what he did was so atrocious and it's happened multiple times in history. You still have to understand, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how bad someone is, there's a perception in their head of what they're doing, and they're doing it for a very specific reason. And sometimes that's power, but we don't know what their mindset is. And I'm not saying it's not evil. I think there's a real hard like turn to take here where both sides probably think they're doing what's right.
Yes. There's a motivation behind Putin and Russia engaging in this. And there's obviously some speculation, like we were doing some research earlier about gas and uranium and resources and things that Ukraine can provide. And also, too, there's something about the timing of it as well that they felt it was the right time to do this. Maybe they've always wanted to do this, but there's something about the right time to do this. And so Russia may see an opportunity that we don't know that they see, and something that they could take advantage of. And when you're thinking about a country that is ultimately a big family, able to have an opportunity for themselves, they take it, and it's difficult to understand it at one point. But just, I brought this up earlier, is Joe Rogan moving to Spotify, and now we found out in the last couple of weeks it was a $200 million deal versus $100 million. Well, think about that. Like, no matter what anyone felt about Joe moving to Spotify, if someone called you up and said you could have extreme generational wealth for your family the rest of your life if you do this, I really think a lot of, this is obviously a show geared towards fathers. Think about that. If you were presented an opportunity to shift your family's lineage and dynamic and create generational wealth with one signature or one move into another country or something of that nature, even if it meant certain other things, ripple effects of that, it'd be really challenging not to say yes. You know what I mean? In that aspect, even though everyone may not agree with it, understand it, but till you're in those shoes, we really don't know what we would do, right? It's easy to point the finger, or I remember many years ago when people were like, oh, Tiger Woods, how could you be a cheater and all this stuff? And a comedian that I like, Sebastian Maniscalco, goes, you're a regular Joe Blow. You're not Tiger Woods. No one's throwing themselves at you. What do you know about being Tiger Woods and doing that? And he made like a joke, like, you're working at Walmart. How many people do you think are throwing themselves at you? There's not enough understanding of what could all be there till you're actually in those shoes in that moment and what you would choose to do. And so, you know, Ukraine, from our aspect, right, we want everyone to be safe and we don't wish this to happen, but Putin and Russia, and they're the decision makers, must believe that this is the right thing to do morally.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp. There's so much about this I don't understand. And you were doing research. I was on the kind of the receiving end of that research and all of the natural resources in Ukraine. And you're like, wow, they're just making a move to have a major shift in natural resources. But then there's probably so many different angles you could look at it and be like, oh, this is a power play, or oh, this is a gas, or you know, what natural resources, as I mentioned. Like, what is the play? Like, we just really don't know.
Right.
It's all speculation. And one thing I do know is that good, bad, or indifferent, the news is finally not about COVID. And I don't know. It's horrible to say this, but there's this shift. It's kind of like, oh, thank God. Yes. We can move on to something else. But I mean, I feel horrible saying that. But I think there's a lot of people like Joe Rogan, well, thank goodness I get a rest for a minute, right? Or anybody else who's been canceled, or even Whoopi Goldberg, you know, she got thrown under the bus, maybe because she was saying really ridiculous things. I'm going to say she was saying really ridiculous things, but this cancel culture, all of a sudden kind of gets pushed, and all of a sudden it's not talked about.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I'm kind of, it's kind of like nice, but I hate the fact that it's because of a war.
You know, often though, when the epiphany first happens, it's usually looked at catastrophic, right? A lot of times for people to snap out of things that don't really matter or gain clarity on things, it's usually because of something catastrophic. It reminds me of a very dear friend of mine, Cal Callahan, who I was fortunate enough to see at the airport when we got to Austin. And one of the things that I really learned about him and his big shift in growing and deeper as a father and just a more spiritual man is he was in Las Vegas during that mass shooting. Like, he was right there.
Wow.
And so, you know, sometimes... for me, I had a major breakthrough or epiphany in my life when I was hit by a landscaping truck. And who did we say this to earlier about the Chinese farmer story? Maybe. We don't know. The story's maybe. And so nature has a way of bringing certain things together. And this could possibly be the divine's way of saying, stop worrying about things that don't really matter, like who said what, who's wearing a mask, who got a shot and who didn't. You know, all these like things that really don't matter.
Right.
As for humanity. How about this? Now people are dying. Isn't all these other things just complete bullshit? Like, maybe I
would argue yes.
Right, totally. And maybe this is the only way the divine or God or whatever, the universe, whatever you want to call it, could ruffle up the world and go, okay, this happened in Afghanistan, but there was still dissension. You guys didn't get it. Okay, well, now Russia's going to do this. Maybe now you'll give a shit. Maybe now you'll realize that people dying and these bigger things are much greater things to be focused on. And then also, too, be grateful that we get to live in America right now and not have to be concerned with these things. Like, we're so fortunate to be in America, the United States right now, where we're not dealing with this stuff. And so things like cancel culture and what someone said or didn't say or what stance you're on, and, oh, did you vote for Biden or Trump? Like, these things that really don't ultimately matter to the greater good and won't matter. And it's so sad that we have to be taken to such rock bottoms at times to be to have a different perspective. But You know, I remember really clearly on 9/11 how it took that, and then everyone finally loved being American again, and patriotism finally became a thing again. Like, people were excited to have a United States flag on their car or in front of their house. And so what I'm really ultimately praying for, besides these people that are being part of this dismay and display of violence, is that we could all come together and go, we have differences. We have different political views, religious views, and all this stuff. We may say things we don't mean from time to time. We could be offensive and imperfect. But God damn it, no one wants anyone to die, right? I really feel like we could all agree on, we all don't want a massive world war and everyone to hit a nuclear bomb and end us forever.
So let's talk about this from a parenting or leader position in your home. Let's talk about the leader in the home or the leader in your circle. I've already noticed like several ways of responding. Like, holy crap, one person might push the button and everybody pushes the button and it's a flash of white light and we're all gone. And then there's the response of, hey, let's just wait this out, be smart, have perspective, and see what happens. And, you know, I know, like, people are freaking out, like, the projection for the gas prices just absolutely skyrocketing, and the projection that, you know, the banks and are going to go under, and all these things. So, like, I know how I feel. How do you feel about a man's response to this? And let's just, I think a man is a leader in their home, not just by presence.
Sure. This takes me back to my wife and I have someone that we look to who's a family therapist, and once a year we do a family tune-up. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he really brings up in about marriage is it brings attention to that the relationship is always above the issues. The we is always stays above whatever is happening right now. So whatever occurred, it's about we first. And it also then puts in a perspective when he said that, is this really worth fighting over? Is this really worth arguing over? Is this really that important to a committed long-term relationship with my partner to be mad at, fight about, argue about? Because is it really going to matter in 20 years? And that's the thing that I really hope becomes a great lesson for fathers here and husbands and all this stuff. The things that we may think are a pain in the ass that day, or that we show up in a way that we're not really proud of. Is this issue that's happening right now, is it bigger than the relationships that we're committed to? Right? Like, and especially when it comes, like I said, marriage, like, does it really matter that our wife left a dirty Tupperware in the sink and that I have to wash it? Is it really worth having a argument that I had to wash this Tupperware even though I asked you not to do it? You know, is it really worth having that stuff, or arguing, or these low-level things to this bigger, higher thing? And can we then anchor in that in this moment and take an inventory of your life and go, how many things are you holding on to right now? Maybe with your spouse, or maybe with your children, or how you have to show up for them, or certain things like with dads having to, you know, feeling like they have to spend time with their kid or do certain things where, man, is it really worth you getting upset in the moment for and dragging it out and bleeding out? Or are you just committed to being the best man, husband, father that you really could be? And let's throw these issues away because they're obviously not really important.
Yeah. I mean, you know where I stand.
Yeah.
You know where I stand. I stand that we put that above all.
Yes.
And the thing that I'm looking at this in, even with my wife, the initial response is, oh my gosh, we're driving to Florida. It's going to cost us $7 a gallon. I'm like, it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We can pivot. I can go buy 10 gallons or, fill up a bunch of gallons of gas and whatever. We're going to be fine. And I think as a leader or as the man in the house, calm, cool, looking at the big picture is the best way in this situation. Focusing on love, focusing on serving.
Yes.
My wife likes to feel secure. So how am I going to provide that security in a world that's, on fire? It's a dumpster fire right now. How do I provide that? I bring it all back into what I can control. And what I can control is within my four walls. What I can control is what happens on my face. What I can control is listening with intention, really looking her deep in the eyes, listening, understanding that body language we talk about, acknowledging, and just letting her know, I hear you and I love you and I'm listening.
That's it. Just be a stable lighthouse. A lighthouse just turns on its light, doesn't worry about the ships that aren't coming to shore, doesn't worry about the ones that are. It's just, we're here, we're going to stabilize, and nothing's going to change. We're here doing that.
And one thing I've done, and I'm curious what you think about this, in my head, I'm thinking of, okay, if things do go bad, how am I going to respond? I like to have preparation in my mind, not overthinking, not fantasizing, but like, okay, if A happens, if in some crazy circumstance A happens, what can I do to best lead my family? Stay calm. And one way you can stay calm is think through the circumstances. All right. Okay. I think I know what I'm going to do. And I do it. I don't have to talk to my wife about it. What I might say is like, I have some ideas. I'm planning. I'm making some moves. It's going to be okay. I got you. I got you.
Yeah. Like to piggyback off you said is the more proactive, the more prepared you are, the less chance of being reactive. Mm-hmm. And the poor choices come in the reactive. And so if you are able to walk yourself through situations, become prepared, and just ready for them, you will not fall into the reactive side, which is after an event happens, and it's usually due to the bang and then not being prepared for it. That usually causes that reactive side where on the proactive side, there's a we. On the reactive side, there's two eyes. Right? It automatically becomes opposing versus together. And as much as a man could do that in every area of their life, that's the most important thing. If you're leading, if it's just you and your wife, you and your family, you as a man, just being proactive. And also, too, and in the business world, a lot of men are listening to this. They may be managers, entrepreneurs, they have a business. Just keeping this in mind, that being proactive and not reactive will keep you, yourself, the team that you lead, the family that you have all together and feeling safe, as safe as possible.
Yeah. And again, I'm big, and it's really taking a step back and doing that. These are the things I can control. These are things 100% out of my control if somebody pushes the button. I can't control that. But what I can control is how I'm going to respond in the moment. What I can control is how I'm going to feed positivity into my family. I'm going to overcome fear with confidence and compassion and set the tone. Because if we respond in fear, we're going to breed fear.
Yep.
So it's really, I love that visual you see all the time with the circles and, what you can control and what's out of your control and where you focus all your time. It's always inside of things that you can control. And that's really not much. It's your own response.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better. I just once again, my prayers and love and everything go out to the people of Ukraine, and may God watch over you, or the divine watch over you, and keep everyone safe. And I really send my sincerest love to them and prayers, and really hope that this is over much quicker than it stays on.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
All right.
So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have a comment, like, reach out to us. That's super simple. Post it in the group, message us, whatever, ask questions. Make sure you check out Brotherhood of Fatherhood. And Brotherhood, write this down, brotherhoodfatherhood.com/events. You want to get on our mailing list. We got something big coming up in September. It's going to be awesome. We got more things coming. We've got, of course, the exciting things that Angelo's bringing into the Brotherhood of Fatherhood as part of Brotherhood of Fatherhood, which is just ridiculously exciting. If you didn't catch that, just be watching. We're going to be talking about that.
Yep.
So thanks again, brother.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.